there has come to an end. NPR's Jason Bobian is in Turkey. He reports the death toll in both countries now exceeds 25,000.
Officials in Syria are giving up hope of finding any more people alive from the devastating quakes. Meanwhile, in Turkey, local residents and rescue crews continue to try to reach people they believe are trapped in piles of debris. Working in the darkness Friday night in the city of Adıyaman, Runy was helping dig into the basement of his sister's collapsed apartment building.
Nobody's gonna lose, this hope. But if you lose your hope, it's everything.
Hours later, crews reached a woman and her child alive under the rubble of a neighboring building. Turkey's vice president says 67 survivors were extracted nationwide on Friday as thousands of rescue teams continued their work. Jason Bobiak, NPR News, Adıyaman, Turkey.
Pro-government rallies are taking place in Iranian cities today to mark the 44th anniversary of the revolution that overthrew the monarchy and ushered in the ruling theocracy in Tehran. The BBC's Sebastian Usher reports.
The annual commemoration of the revolution that turned Iran into a theocratic state has also showed strength by the country's leaders. Tens of thousands of Iranians are taking part across the country, chanting slogans and waving banners that, as usual, condemn the US and Israel. The UK and Saudi Arabia are also prominent this year in the denunciations. All four countries have been portrayed by the authorities as the instigators of the wave of anti-government protests that have challenged the very core of the theocracy that's ruled the country since 1979.
The BBC's Sebastian Usher reporting. Major U.S. airlines are urging the FAA to extend a deadline to retrofit airplanes with altimeters that would be free from interference from 5G wireless signals. The current deadline for upgrading the equipment is this summer. NPR's David Schaefer reports.
Radio altimeters measure the distance an airplane is above the ground, and they're critical for pilots landing in bad weather. The altimeters use a band of the radio spectrum that is adjacent to the band used for some high-speed 5G wireless service. Airlines at the FAA are concerned that 5G towers near airports may interfere with some older altimeters, and that could pose a safety threat. So 5G implementation has been delayed in some areas until July of this year to give airlines more time to retrofit their planes. But the industry group Airlines for America says some airlines may not meet that deadline and is strongly urging the FAA to give them another year to comply. The FAA is considering it. David Schaefer, NPR News.
This is NPR News from Washington. The Pentagon says a military jet shot down an unidentified object flying over Alaska yesterday. A spokesman says it was about the size of a small car and was brought down off Alaska's North Slope. It was far smaller than the Chinese surveillance balloon shot down off South Carolina last weekend. President Biden ordered this object be shot because it was flying at about 40,000 feet and posed a reasonable threat to civilian aircraft. South African police are investigating the fatal shooting of one of the country's leading rappers and his former manager outside a restaurant in the port city of Durban. The killers allegedly walked up to the musicians' group on the sidewalk, fired several shots, and disappeared into the night on foot. Ishma Fandikwa has more.
The South African government took to Twitter to lead the nation in mourning the death of Kenan Forbes, popularly known as AKA, who died on the spot. The multiple South African award-winning rapper had several hits, including Don't Forget to Pray, a collaboration with Anna T. South Africa has one of the highest murder rates in the world. Gun-Free South Africa, a non-governmental organization, estimates at least 30 people die in shootings daily. For NPR News, I am Ishma Fundikwa in Harare.
Russian space officials say an uncrewed Russian supply ship docked at the International Space Station has lost cabin pressure, but they say there is no danger to the station or the crew. I'm Nora Ram, NPR News in Washington.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include the Annie E. Casey Foundation, using research and evidence to develop solutions that help families and communities create a brighter future for young people. More information is available at aecf.org.
This is 90.7 WFAE and WFAE.org. Support comes from WFAE listeners, PBSNC.
You what? bet you Steve Oakes is going to be up there.
What's good, y'all? You are listening to Code Switch, the show about race and identity from NPR. I'm Gene Demby.
And I'm Lori Lizarraga. It's Super Bowl season, Gene. We are recording this before the game, so congratulations and good luck to your Philadelphia Eagles.
Thank you, sis. I appreciate you so much.
And this will come as no surprise to you, Gene, but it's pretty lit in Philly right now.
Believe it.
I mean, an Eagles Super Bowl on the back of a Phillies World Series.
Lori, stay safe out there. Like, I know people in Philly don't know how to act. Like,
No light pull of safe, Gene.
I was there in Philly in 2018 when the Eagles finally won the Super Bowl. It was chaos. Like, it was one of the best nights of my life. We were walking down Broad Street, me and my wife and my friends, and it felt like the whole city was having this cathartic moment. Like, finally. There was a couple having sex on top of a car. And my wife, you know, is a football fanatic too. Like, she's a Niners fan. I'm so sorry, babe. I'm sorry to bring it up. And football was like a really big part of our early dating life.
Aww.
Yeah. But you know, like, it's football. It's very weird. Like, when the Eagles won 5 years ago, I felt a kind of relief. Like, now we got the chip, right? Like, I can release myself from the agony. And now I don't have to keep holding my nose and contorting myself to watch this messed up sport and supporting this janky league. Like, and even still, this year, you know, as both of our teams, we're doing really good. Like, my lady and I both started slowly peeking over the fence to see what was good. And we got sucked back in.
I think a lot of football fans have a complicated relationship with the sport, especially like after seeing such brutal injuries play out on the field every year. This season has been no exception.
Right, and it's not like the NFL needs more people chattering about them this week, but this episode is about football.
Super Bowl 57, but make it Code Switch.
For sure, for sure. In this episode, we're talking about who gets to call the shots, who takes the hits, and what the NFL can tell us about why corporate diversity plans fail. And to get into all this, Lori, I want to introduce you to Dominique Foxworth.
I play cornerback. It is the blackest position in all of professional sports.
These days, Dominique is a commentator and writer for ESPN, but before that, he played for the Broncos, the Falcons, and the Ravens.
I remember quite clearly in the first grade telling my dad I would be a professional football player, and my idea of being a professional athlete was absurd, and he knew that, but in general, talking to a first grader, you don't blow up their dreams.
His father was more of a hoops head, a big Tar Heels fan.
He's like, yeah, what about basketball? I was like, no, the soft kids play basketball was my response to him, which was dumb as hell, but like, yeah, no, that's what the soft kids do. I play football.
Okay, so he was like, I want to run fast, and I want to run fast into people.
Basically.
I'm only 5'11", so basketball wouldn't have worked out anyway.
Now, Dominique was from the Baltimore area, so when he started playing football when he was little, all his teammates were black, so were all his coaches.
I had black coaches until high school, so I grew up in Randallstown, and the local high school was not somewhere that my mom wanted me to go to when we didn't have private school money, so she sent me to a magnet school called Western Tech, but that was the first white coach I had.
Dominique was a really, really good high school player. So good that his school retired his jersey number. While he was still a senior in high school, he got a scholarship to play football at the University of Maryland, and in college, the whole, football apparatus was just a lot bigger. There were more coaches on the staff, more players, and the coaching staff was just a lot whiter.
That tracks. So what does that mean for the player-coach relationship?
He said it was like a whole different energy.
It's funny because we know all the mythology around coaches being mentors and parental figures and you being a part of a team, and I think all that was true for me all the way up and through high school, and it felt true even when I got to college.
Right, one big difference is that in college, the coach's livelihoods start to depend on how well players like him performed.
Yeah, in so many ways, right? Dominique said, okay, the year before he got there, Maryland was garbage. But during his freshman year, they had this dramatic turnaround. They made it all the way to the Orange Bowl.
Hey, good for them. Did they win?
Oh, no, not at all.
We got smashed by Florida.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, that L wasn't the only smack in the face they got from that game.
Then we came back home from the Orange Bowl, and all the coaches had new Cadillacs, and we had a bag of sweatshirts that said Maryland Terps Orange Bowl. And I mean, I guess I knew it before, but it was the first time it was like in your face that the relationship has changed.
The next year, he said, they were even better. We made it to another bowl game, the Gator Bowl. And this time,
They won?
they destroyed the rivals West Virginia. They stopped them.
Performance by Maryland's offense, defense, and special teams. And once again, they dominate their northern rival West Virginia, winning this one by a 41-7.
And then our coach went on a bunch of NFL head coaching interviews. And he used those interviews, as I'm sure any sports fans know, to leverage contract extension with more money out of the team that he was on.
These were mostly black players who were doing all the drills, doing the weightlifting, the running, the throwing, doing the hitting and getting hit. They were the ones who developed the injuries that they had to spend all this time rehabbing from. And when they won that Gator Bowl, the players got sweatshirts.
Again with the sweatshirts.
Right? And also, that's just like a corny ass reward. Like, you can't wear a 2004 Gator Bowl champion sweatshirt for more than maybe 2 or 3 months before it starts to get underwear. Meanwhile, his coaches were getting job offers that would have made them rich.
Yeah, you can't drive a sweatshirt.
But Dominique was a star. Like, he was one of the team leaders, so the coach treated him pretty good. And unlike most of his teammates, he had a really good chance of going to the league, of realizing his dream of playing pro football. When he was done with college, he had one last hurdle, and that was the NFL scouting combine.
Explanatory comma time. And you know, I know sports, Gene. But
Of course.
just in case there's anyone Googling the NFL combine, like I absolutely did not have to do me personally.
Of course.
The Scouting Combine is this big week-long event held every year where college players who, dream of making it to the pros essentially try out for teams around the league ahead of the NFL draft.
And this is the NFL we're talking about. So the Combine becomes a big media event in its own right, a way for the NFL to pump out some pro football content during the off-season. So, you turn on your TV, you watch these NFL hopefuls go through drills to test their agility and their speed and how well they can catch and run routes and sprint the 40-yard dash. Like, the 40-yard dash is like the big thing now. And there's TV commentary throughout the whole thing.
Just so clean, getting out. 429, all right. All the fans dig it. Oh.
And this is all happening in a giant NFL stadium. The players who are going through all this are wearing jerseys, but with no names on them, just numbers. And it's kind of creepy. The racial dynamics, and these are mostly black and brown players, while the clipboard holders are mostly white. It just adds a whole nother layer to it.
There's always the part where you have to do, like, they just look at your body too, like coaches and general managers just look at your body. That's the most slave auctioning part, where you just stand up there and it's like, hey, what you look like with just shorts on, like that was the part that was like,
And I mean, I used to dance competitively, so it reminds me of auditions, but as a Texan, it also sounds kind of like a stock show.
Hold up. What is a stock show? I'm a city boy. Like, talk to me like I'm stupid.
Okay, this is not just country, Gene. Yeah, they're like ag competitions, agriculture competitions where breeders trot out their prize animals, donning these numbers on their backs to compete for best sheep, or like champion bull. It sounds like I'm making that up, but those are real categories.
I'm laughing, but like, that's wild. Like, it is kind of the same energy.
Yeah.
A lot of the evaluations of the Combine are not televised. You don't see the interviews that NFL prospects do with different teams, where they get asked probing, sometimes wild, like really out-of-pocket questions about their personal lives.
Like, what kind of questions?
Okay, so recently one team was asking players, do you find your mother attractive?
Stop.
I guess to see how they react.
I wonder if I can. That's probably the commander.
Up until last year, they even had to take an IQ test.
I was asking that shit.
Yes, it was called the Wonderlic test. It was an IQ test that was designed in the 1930s with all the jankiness that is implied in that. Dominique said that at another point on the Combine, all the players were sort of shuttled between different medical staff and trainers, just having their bodies poked and prodded.
I think lots of players have like degraded at the Combine stories, but mine is the physicals. And so the physicals, you like conveyor belt style, go from room to room to room, where if you had a history of injuries, you have to go here for this body part and go there. And then there's also the traditional physical stuff. So you had to do the turn your head and cough. And I don't know if that one needs an explainer, but...
Okay, having never done this, that's when they check you for a hernia, right?
Yeah. A doctor or whoever holds your scrotum in their hand and tells you to turn your head and cough. And there were too many people being checked at the time Dominique was supposed to do this, so he couldn't go into a room for this to happen. And
I had to do that in the hallway.
Oh my God.
It was backed up. So, like, there was nobody in there but other, like, combine participants. But it still was, like, degrading. Like, you're just like, hey, just go ahead. We backed up. What's your name? Okay. What's your number? Pull them out.
Dominique said at the time he thought that was weird as hell. But you know, the NFL had been his dream for his whole life.
So, he pulled him out?
Yeah, he pulled him out.
Oh.
Dominique was drafted by the Denver Broncos, and a few years into his career, he became a player representative in the NFL Players Union, and later, he was the head of the union, which pushed him across the table from team executives and owners in some real testy meetings over things like player pensions and working conditions, and the league's challenges, let's say, with coaching diversity.
Every step you go higher, it gets wider. And it's just like, we are allowed to be a part of the game because our bodies are useful.
Dominique is black, like 60% of the 1,800 players on NFL rosters. About 70% of the players in the league are people of color. The sidelines, though, very different story. The dudes who ultimately pick who plays on game day and tells them what to do, they're all mostly white.
The NFL head coach is the person who is the ultimate kind of shot caller for a NFL team.
That's Gus Garcia-Roberts. He's a sports reporter for the Washington Post, and last fall, he did a deep dive into the NFL's long history of failed attempts to diversify its coaching ranks in a series called Blackout.
He's the person who is calling all of the plays, and they're also sort of like the psyche of an NFL team off the field as well.
Because there's so much turnover among the players on the NFL team every year, like people get traded or retire or get hurt or sign with new teams, the head coach gives the team a kind of philosophical or cultural continuity. And it's a really cushy gig, right? Like, the lowest paid head coaches in the NFL make more than $3 million a year. And it's a really hard job to get. There are only 32 NFL head coaching jobs.
Right. Like, just from a numbers standpoint, that means it's literally easier to become a U.S. senator, or like a governor even, than a head coach in the NFL. But that's wild.
Yeah, and like, only a few of these spots open up each year, so there's always this very loud, very public speculation about who is on the short list to fill these spots.
Okay, Gene, I want the stats then.
Okay.
Like, what do the demographics look like for head coaches in the NFL?
So at the time we're recording this, just before the Super Bowl, only 6 of the 32 coaches in the NFL are people of color. So 4 are black, 1 is Lebanese, and 1 is Latino.
So, you know, it's quick math on this.
Okay.
81% of the head coaches in the NFL are white.
Oh, that was good.
Thank you. And as we just heard, 70% of the players are not.
How did you do that calculation? Like, what?
Beep boop, beep boop, beep beep boop, beep boop, beep boop, beep boop.
There's a lot of mythologizing about meritocracy in sports. Like, oh, the people who get the jobs are the most talented or the most experienced. But like, if you look around the NFL at who gets the head coaching jobs, like, I don't know, man. Like,
say more, Gene.
Okay, for example, just a few months ago, the Indianapolis Colts fired their coach, a white dude, halfway through the season because they were having a really bad year, and they replaced him with a different white dude. This guy was a retired Colts player that the owner really liked, but who had only ever coached at a Christian K-12 school in Georgia.
He went straight from coaching high school to coaching in the pros. I mean, that's like plucking a high school drama teacher to direct a $200 million Marvel movie.
Right? And I mean, I guess if you're being generous, like, he did play in the league, but...
helpful experience, but like, I don't know. It's not exactly sufficient.
Yeah, which is probably why his team lost 7 of the 8 games he coached. And all this, right, while coaches of color can't even get a foot in the door. Here's Dominique again.
There probably are people in the NFL that would like to see this change, but like it's hard to change all the factors that perpetuate this hierarchy in America and in particular inside football. And one of the biggest factors is frankly like ingrained individual racism. So like it's also the institutional racism exists, but I don't want to absolve any decision makers of the individual racism that also impacts their decision making. So the argument that there were not enough black coaches in the pool, like that's been disproven time and time again. And even if that were fair, like they've been willing to go outside of the traditional pool to hire white coaches.
Matt Rule.
None of this is new.
Yeah, and this has been a source of controversy for decades. And a little over 20 years ago, actually, a bunch of people tried to get the NFL to do something about it. You would not think of the NFL as like a model of inclusive hiring, but the plan the NFL came up with might be the most influential diversity program in American life. That plan is called the Runy Rule. And after the break, how the world's most famous defense attorney scared the NFL into creating the Runy Rule, and how an executive at the NFL became the Runy Rule's Pied Piper.
In one conference, he called it the NFL's most significant export besides the game itself.
Stay with us. You're listening to Code Switch from NPR.
You're listening to 90.7 WFAE and WFAE.org. And after the break, ripples of the Rooney Rule. Gene and Lori get into how the Rooney Rule works, how it came to be, with the help of Washington Post reporter Gus Garcia Roberts. The rule is that at least one minority applicant needs to be interviewed for a head coaching job. And the question is, why, after so many decades, 2 decades, is there still severe racial disparity between players and coaches? And later in the show, Life Kit offers advice for those facing the job hunt. If you love good stories, I got to tell you to tune in to Snap Judgment tonight at 7. Suitcase filled with old audio tapes ignites a woman's imagination. And another story about a doppelganger finding out that she looks like one of the most famous people in the country who everybody hates. Snap Judgment tonight at 7.
Oh, that would be interesting.
That might be Kamala Harris.
Oh.
Support for NPR comes from this station and from Uma, a cloud-based phone service for any size business with an automated virtual receptionist, video meetings, and other features to connect to customers and coworkers anywhere at uma.com/NPR. And from BetterHelp, committed to supporting mental health through therapy. Clients are matched with one of 25,000 therapists and can communicate via video, chat, or phone at betterhelp.com/.
Stop recording video button.
NPR.
23 minutes, 23 seconds. Speech off.
Code Switch, the show about race and identity from NPR.
And I'm Lori Lizarraga. We're talking about the Rooney Rule, the NFL's diversity plan that's been really influential, but not necessarily effective.
All right, so back in 2002, at the steakhouse in Baltimore, some academics and activists and lawyers called a press conference, and they were trying to bring attention to the fact that the NFL, then, just like now, was basically shutting out black candidates from coaching jobs. And they came to this press conference armed with this new research that found that on the rare occasions that black coaches were hired in the NFL, their teams won more games than white coaches did. But the research also found that you were just as likely to be fired if you were a black coach with a winning record as a white coach with a losing record.
Oh my God. The whole twice as good to get half as buzzing.
Mm-hmm. Gus Garcia Roberts, the Washington Post reporter we heard from before, said that people have been making noise about this problem for a long time, and maybe there would be a little bit of media attention before everybody moved on. But this time was different.
There's 2 high-profile attorneys who held a press conference, and one of those attorneys was Johnny Cochran.
The Johnny Cochran.
Yeah, that Johnny Cochran.
Johnny Cochran had made his name by suing the police department in Los Angeles. In those lawsuits, they brought a lot of attention to the extent of the police brutality against the city's black residents. But by 2002, Johnny Cochran was known as the guy who helped O.J. Simpson get off in the most publicized murder case in American history.
It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't fit. If it doesn't fit, you must have quit.
I asked Gus, like, Johnny Cochran wrestled with the bars at this press conference?
He did. As he's known for, his kind of threat against the NFL, which was picked up a lot because it rhymed, was something along the lines of, we will only litigate if the NFL doesn't negotiate.
Ooh, like,
Oh, wow.
if our coaches don't get more diverse, we're going to make things for y'all much worse.
Oh my God. Off the dome. Oh my God.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave this on.
Cochran's little couplet was off the dome just like yours. And the people who called the press conference with him were hoping.
If somebody tries to steal the car, they'll steal you with it.
Oh. Where you going?
Take a piss.
Oh, I gotta go pee. Yeah.
Okay, let's go.